Hello, everyone. This is Chala Dinkoy, the host of this private B2B CEO Society network. And I am the CEO myself of the Repositioning Expert. And I have here another CEO that's part of our group who's signed up for the bootcamp, John Golden. He and I met because I was on his podcast recently, and he wanted to share most of the gems that are hidden in his head with you guys today. And I am so glad to welcome here today. Hi, John.
Hey, Shala, how you doing?
Good. I mean, how many of those interviews do you do, for God's sake?
Well, probably somewhere between, probably about 6 or 7 a week, I would say.
Wow.
So
how many
yeah, so this, I beg your pardon?
How many are you on? Like number what? Number 10?
Oh, no. We're more like 400.
Oh my God. You're like one of the old grandfathers of podcasting.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a number of years. Yeah. So, and we do the video podcasting. We extract it for audio. We blog posts. So we really make sure that when our guests come on, that the content is spread as far wide as possible in as many formats as possible.
Well, why don't you tell us, now that you've intrigued us, what you do and who you help?
Yeah. So basically, Sales Pop was started a number of years ago as an online multimedia magazine, predominantly for salespeople, as the name would suggest. But over time, we've kind of spread out into marketing and entrepreneurs and business leaders. But basically, our whole goal is to bring the best of thought leadership to people. And that's why we go and find people like Shala here, and we interview them and we bring their content, because this is our give back. Our other business is Pipeliner CRM, which is our core business. This is our give back, because for me, there was just so much stuff out there, but there was on the internet, but there was nothing that was really collated and brought together in one place really well, where you could find a lot of different opinions. And as I said, insights and thought leadership. So now, there's interviews, there's blog posts, there's live panel events. We're doing, we do some live events where we gather lots of experts around a single subject. And this is really our give back to help to educate and support people out in the field.
That's amazing. So, I mean, how have you changed things up because of COVID?
Well, interestingly enough, we haven't had to change up a lot, because we've been working virtually ourselves for a long time. But one of the first things I did when COVID started is I did a 1-minute remote or virtual working tips series, where I recorded, I think there's about 15 of those 1 to 2 minute tips. Because one thing, Shala, as you probably know, is a lot of people, the whole remote working was a brand new thing to them, or maybe like working one day at home a week, but not running an organization that was suddenly virtual, or people suddenly being virtual the whole time. So I created a series for people who, so both from an individual and a company point of view, how to manage and be effective with remote working. So we've tried to do that. We also did an event not too long ago where we did Getting Ready for Recovery, where we had everything from economists to sales leaders, people from so many different perspectives, like military leaders, about how you overcome a crisis and get yourself ready for recovery.
That's amazing. How did you get all those people?
We have to be honest, since Sales Pop started about 3.5 to 4 years ago, we've had about 1,000 different contributors over the years. So we have quite a big network of people we can call upon. And
then you just like tap on them and say, hey, I need a military. I need a gem. You just send one.
I need somebody with, and it's great because we have, like for instance, over the years, we've had people we've had one guy who was on all of the 6 SEAL teams, right?
Wow.
I mean, think of that for a perspective. Another guy, special ops, leader, all of these people. So they have such a wealth of experience especially in high pressure and, kind of crisis situations. So it's been good to call on people like that during this time. And then we have people from just across the board.
No kidding. So what advice would you give us based on what you've learned from them during this time?
Yeah, so the advice that I would give people is, number one, I think you got to take and I think this is something that Charlotte, that you teach them as well. You got to take a look at your core business right now and say, okay, how is my business? How's my target buyer and that being impacted by this crisis? Is it a short-term impact, or is it a more structural long-term impact? Like, are they in an industry where things are not going to be the same afterwards? Yeah. Or are they in an industry that's maybe going to take a long time? For instance, if you're selling into if your target customers are cruise lines, right? You may want, that's probably going to have a much longer term impact and a much harder recovery. So maybe you need to start looking at adjacent markets. Maybe you need to start looking at repackaging your products and services. Maybe you need to start taking a good hard look at, where you're positioned right now. Or if it's more of a short-term thing, then you need to look at, and this is what Shala's bootcamp and stuff is great for. Maybe you need to look at how you repackage your messaging right now to resonate with what's top of mind with your target buyer right now. That's a great setup, by the way, for my next question. You're such a pro. We're excited to have you join us, even though you didn't know very long about this bootcamp. You were right, glad to join us. And what kind of bonus content would most help people or yourself around messaging and their pitch? Yeah, I think, Charlotte, the thing about messaging, I think because messaging is not an easy thing for most people and for most organizations, that, we tend to go through a messaging process, get our message, and then think, oh, thank goodness I have my message now and I can just work with that. And you think, God, put that aside for another 2 years or 3. But the reality is that we're living in a very short-term environment right now. So you have to revisit your message on a regular basis and make sure and tweak it. And so I think one of the great things that you can do to help people is to maybe take the stress out of looking at messaging, maybe demystify the process, maybe say, it's not always completely changing your message. Sometimes it's just tweaking it a little bit or whatever. But also, I think helping people understand that messaging really is a dynamic process, because let's face it, the world we live in is pretty darn dynamic right now, and a little more dynamic than we would like it to be. So I think those are the things. I think taking the stress out of it, because as I said, otherwise I think people go through a messaging process and then they think, great, put that aside now. I've got my messaging for the next couple of years. Don't have to worry about that. And that's just not the reality. Great.
Well, it just so reminds me of like getting married. They're like, okay, we're married now. We don't have to change anything. We don't have to reinvent it. Yeah. You don't, then you have to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, marriage is pretty dynamic too, I have to say.
But you see, it's a metaphor. What you're saying is just communication. So if people are dynamic, then how could your communication stay the same if the environment of people are constantly changing? So very good point, my friend.
And I just give you one more quick example about the the dynamic nature of it, because we were dealing with some customers early in this process, and some of them went into complete shutdown immediately. They're not going to do anything this year. Everything is shut down. And then a month or two later, they were like, well, actually, things don't seem as bad for the business. We're recovering, so maybe we are going to do something. And so it's that fluid, and therefore, if you're not reacting to that, if you're not ready to if you're not ready to be fluid as well, you could really be out of sync with your customer base.
That is true. Yes. Thank you. And so how could our viewers reach you? Let me show your contact information.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, obviously, John Golden. You can contact me just directly at john.golden@pipelinersales.com. I'm always happy to hear from people.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. This is the day. Today's the day we start tonight. We are so excited. And we will see all of you, and you guys go and check out John Golden's stuff on salespop.net. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And then I am so thrilled. Thank you.
Yeah. See, that's part of the messaging process, is to sound like you know what you're talking about.
Sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I think I'll talk to him sometime. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you, John. All the best.
Thank you, Shala.
Bye-bye.